for joining us today in person and on Zoom. We'll start with an opening statement from Pat, just on your thoughts from the season and the roster decisions that were announced yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, it's been interesting the last 5 days and stuff. It's certainly a lot of reflection, I think, on how the season ended. But I think overall, when you look at it, it's been a good season. Something we're pretty proud of. It's the second time this team in 10 years has been in the playoffs consecutively, so that's something to be proud of. But I thought Ben actually summed it up perfectly when he said, a great season is when you do well, make the playoffs, and you lift a trophy. And we didn't lift a trophy this year. So for us, I think we're proud of the progress we've made. So I think it's probably terminated in a good season. But I think there's a lot of improvement for us and a lot of room for us to keep growing. For us, I think we have a good core. We're really happy with the core group of guys we have. I think our focus moving forward is to retain as much of that core as you possibly can. We're in a salary cap league, so there are some decisions that are difficult to make for guys that we probably would like to keep and retain. But unfortunately, in our league, that goes on. You have to make those hard decisions. But for us, I think the theme we've been going is how do we get younger, faster, stronger? I think is the way we've been looking at it. So it's an exciting off season for us, and our whole goal for us, and certainly on the executive side and with Ben and Asher Mendelson, our technical director, is to make sure that we could sustain the success that we've had the last couple of years and continue to be a winner and to try to compete for trophies in this league.
All right, we'll start with Luis here in the middle.
Thank you, Pat. Luis from Univision 45. The decision of not retaining Hector Herrera or not exercising the option of keeping him here had to do with what happened on Sunday and
No, I mean, it'd be tough to say that doesn't factor into it. I think there's a lot of factors that go into any decision you make within a roster. For us, Hector, I would term, has probably been the greatest signing, if not certainly one of the top signings that the club has ever had in its history. He helped turn a franchise that had continually, certainly over the last 8 years, had a difficult time making the playoffs and sustaining success, and turned us in. His 23 performance was probably the best performance by a Dynamo player in history of the club in one season. There was small discussion about him as an MVP, made a best 11. We hosted a U.S. Open Cup, made the playoffs for the first time in what seemed like generations. But I think a lot of things factor into it. Part of it is designated players do get judged at a different level than a roster player. I mean, in the end, the ownership group is paying a lot of money for these guys, and the reality was, unfortunately, this year he was only available for about 50% of our minutes, and even part of that was still him trying to get fit. He had an opportunity in his contract to be able to show that he could stay fit, stay on the field, and us get the playoffs. We held on our end of the bargain of making the playoffs, but unfortunately, he wasn't able to stay fit enough, and part of that started right out of the gate this year. So a lot of factors go into it. I think the incident that happened, I don't think we condone that, spitting on any opponent. That's whether it's an opponent, whether it's a referee, it's just unacceptable and not accepted in our game. And I'm sure he would be the first guy to tell you that he kind of lost his mind for a moment. But that's not the determining factor why we made this. But everything plays into it.
And I talked to him less than 2 weeks ago, and he was really confident that he will stay here. Can you take us to how those discussions were, maybe the day after? And
we were talking. I have a good relationship with his agent and a good relationship with Hector. So we've had lots of conversations. The season has gone on, and I think for us it was evaluate how the postseason went as well. Was a big part of it, but. The one thing I'll give him is he wanted to be here. He wanted to be in Houston. I think he's upset that we decided to kind of part ways and move on. But for us, I think it's important for us to make sure that out of that position, the designated player position, when I say that, is that we're getting minutes. And this year has been a bit disappointing from our standpoint. For part of that is the executive, part of that is the players. But we need to get our designated players on the field as much as we can.
Pat, Luis Ortiz with KHOU. You talk about the MLS being a salary cap league, and you want to retain most of the core of the players that you have right now. How much cap room do you have, and what kind of signings are you looking to make, ahead of next season?
Yeah, I mean, obviously with Hector leaving, there's, you can argue there's a designated player slot. There's some rule changes and shifts that happened. We now, this started in the summer last year, and this year we'll have to decide whether we're going to go with a 2 or 3 DP model. And that'll give us either 3 or 4 YPS players, youth players, slot players, or and a certain amount of GAM. So we've got a bit of flexibility. We don't have a lot. We've spent the last 2 years really pulling money forward and making sure that we could get a good run with these last 2 groups that we've had. So this year, it's probably about us being a little more fiscally responsible, but at the same token, keeping our core and then seeing if we can now be a little more specific in how we add. Go ahead.
Sorry, and you mentioned maybe this year being more fiscally responsible. How competitive can you be in that sense?
Yeah, no, I mean, we're still, when I say that, yeah, that comes across, maybe that's the wrong way to say fiscally responsible. We have complete support from our ownership group, and the level we've been spending in our league is, that's not changing. So we're not being told, hey, I want to be crystal clear, Ted has been very supportive, we're not going back and changing the way we spend. So I would expect us to go try to find a few players that'll make a splash for us. We're going to try to look for a couple of starters in our lineup, which cost money to go after, but we want to make sure we do this properly and make sure it's the right fit. We're fortunate, I think. Sorry, long-winded answers, but one of the things you guys can edit, so you're good at that. One of the things that we're excited about, and I think from 22 to 23, as we made, I believe it was either 15 or 17 changes, 17 player changes. We don't have to do that now because we have this core group. We have this group. We can kind of nibble at the edges and say, okay, here are 2 key positions that we can go after. Replacing Hector's going to be that's a big one. That's a big role in the way we play and how he's comfortable in the ball. We do have a player in Coco Carrasquilla that feels that's a better position for him. He plays a little differently than Hector does, but he's got some strength that Hector doesn't have. He can drive with the ball, he can turn under pressure, and he can penetrate differently than Hector does. So is that an option we do? Then do we have to find a replacement for Coco's position and try to find that? And is that better to go after a DP attacker that can create more goals than maybe Coco can? But these are all decisions that we're trying to make here. But we definitely have room now to go try to make those plays and moves that'll help our squad. Great question.
We'll go to Ari.
With the DP spot and kind of the way that the better teams in the league now are spending or are using, the way the Miami's sort of built,
Yeah.
the way that they're built. Or
Well, I don't know if it'll be Miami. I mean, it's a little different, but yes, I got
Or
you.
the
I got you. No,
Galaxy.
it's a good question.
Can you spend at the top of the market? Do you have guys identified that can, I mean, because Hector, when you're shopping for him, that is top of the market. You went and got Ezekiel, that's top of
Yep.
the market. Can you bring in another top of the market type guy?
Can we? Yes, we can. We can go find that guy. I think for us, the biggest one is to make sure we find the right piece that fits us. As much as, we can go and say, hey, listen, let's go get an Oliver Giroux, for example, or this. Do we have the means to do that? Yes, we do. But I think for us is to make sure that we're finding the right player that's going to be on the field for us and take us to the next level and try to win a trophy for us. But it's tricky in terms of how you go after these guys. Do we have guys earmarked? Yes. Actually hopping on a plane tomorrow to go watch. So this is what we do in the off season. Asher Mendelson and I and Benny's, we look at a lot of players. We have a great scouting environment here, good scouts, and we use SRC for analytics, and they've done a great job. So we've ID'd a lot of players. Now we have to go try to see these guys, meet them, and then see if they're the right fit for our club.
David over there.
Good afternoon, Pat. David with Dynamo Fan TV. You elaborate a little bit on that, but is there some type of traits that you're looking forward into a player?
Yeah, I mean, one of the strengths, and Ben's touched on this a lot this year, and really the last 2 years, is this group, the locker room, has been really important for us. I think there's a good camaraderie in there. The guys fight for one another. They really enjoy each other's company, and I don't think that happens in all teams, and I think that's really important. So some of the guys we are looking at is we're making sure that they fit. Do they fit that culture? Do they have a winning mindset? Asher and I really earmarked that in 2023. We made all these changes from 22 to 23. We brought in the Eric Shevchenkos, Arturs, Steve Clarks, guys who have a history of winning. Franco Escobar is another one, Hector Herrera. These are guys that have made a career of winning championships. Now, we had a nice run last year, so a lot of those guys now are like, okay, we've got the taste of it. But I still think it'll be important for us to, when we do add players, that'll be one characteristic we'll be looking for, is guys that have won trophies before.
All right, we'll go to Victor Louis. Victor and then Luis. Yeah, we'll let Victor get one.
Hey, Victor,
Pat,
how are you doing?
Victor Rise of the Deportes Nation, Soccer Texas. To follow up on Herrera, just to kind of close the book, you mentioned there was a way he could attain that option. I think you said staying on the field. Might be moot point, but just to understand, can you elaborate on what that was? Maybe some
Within
triggers,
reason, I think the
appearances?
bigger one was for him to be on the field and starting games, and then us attaining, making the playoffs, which.
Is there a
we-
certain game number? I mean,
Yeah, there is a certain game number.
that you'd
Yeah.
like to share?
No, you can't share. Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks, though.
All right, we'll go back to Luis.
Starting this now that the
That's a
off-season,
nice dance.
can you share where your travels will start? And knowing that the market is more open in the summer, are you thinking of maybe if there's a big name coming to Houston, will be more in the summer than in the winter?
Yeah, I think that'll depend on what players are available now. As you said, in the winter, I think our league and you talk to all the clubs, ownership knows this, the CSOs all know this, the coaches understand. January is a difficult window to pry guys away because especially now as the league gets better and better, you're now starting to look at top players in other teams. So to go to, for example, to go to Denmark and try to pull their best player out of FC Copenhagen in the middle of their run, in the middle of their season, it's difficult and it's going to cost a lot of money. So depends if you can find that deal that works, or do you wait till summer where it's a little bit easier for those teams, an English team, from rest of the world really that are open in the summer and they can react to losing one of their better players. So it'll depend on what's available. Once you get into start talking to the players and you start talking to the clubs, you get a pretty good feel of whether it's realistic or not in January. Certainly for us as a league, not just us as Houston Dynamo, the summer is a much better market, more free agents, more teams that are willing to spend and move players around. But we're at right now is January is an important window for us, and we need to add a few pieces, so we have to figure that out.
Back to Luis here.
Pat, I know we kind of beat a dead horse per se when we keep talking
How about Hector?
No. I mean signings, right?
Yeah.
And you mentioned, you have Ted's
Yep.
support and everything. And I understand there's finances too. It's got to
Yep.
make sense. But what is probably the hope that fans can have as far as bringing the marquee guy, a la Antoine Griezmann?
Yeah, I think for us that would be probably a stretch if I'm being open and honest about it. I think that's not something we want to attain or become that club that we're kind of collecting these pieces. I think for us, we want to make sure we get guys that are going to help our team get better and help us. Instead of finishing fifth and having to play 2 road games in the first round, finishing the top 4 and making sure we get the extra home game like we did in 23, which made a big difference for us. So for us, that's the biggest, that'll be the most important part. If an Antoine Griezmann wants to come at a certain budget number, my understanding, I think everybody in this league has probably talked at some stage with somebody who says they represent him, and the numbers are pretty high for that. So it's probably a little bit out of our range.
Last one for me. As far as you mentioned, it was a successful season as far as making the playoffs and whatnot. But what Ben said, Sunday, great seasons end with trophies, and you reiterated that. What's the next step? How do you guys take that next step? Because it's been 2 consecutive years now in the playoffs. But even though you did have some success this year, I would say that was still disappointing.
Yeah, no, it's disappointing the way I think it's disappointing the way it ended. I think we're happy with the way we performed in the season. I think we did face some adversity this year. Having Hector out for the beginning of the season for the first almost 3 months, that was difficult, but we overcame that. I thought the team did a good job of stepping up, and guys that who unfortunately won't be here next year, like a young Grey Goose who played, and it was nice to see a young Brooklyn Reigns get some opportunities, and he kind of went, I don't want to say sideways, but was kind of put in the back burner for a little bit, and then now again towards the end of the season, because of that experience, that really helped him step forward and make a big step forward, and now to the point where in terms of our roster build, we can kind of look at Brooklyn Reigns and say, okay, we can rely on that kid now, and he's got a really bright future ahead of him. So I'm losing track of exactly what your question was, but I think for us, like in terms of our roster and who we're going to bring in, we're always our sole goal is how do we make our team better, and how do we go and try to make sure that at the end of the year, on December 7th, I believe it is this year, that we're playing for the most important trophy in our league.
All right, we'll do one more in the room, then we'll jump to Zoom.
Chris from Houston Sports Images. I was wondering, you've been talking about the midfield and the forwards and all that. Can you elaborate on what's going on with the goalkeeper situation?
So Steve Clark, we didn't pick up his option. We'll see what happens in the next little bit. We're talking to Steve and Andrew. We think we're very confident in Andrew. He had a good run last year with the Open Cup when he won the trophy. So we'll see how this all kind of plays out. I would think it'll probably all play out in the next couple of weeks. The deadline for options to be exercised, so you guys know, is November 27th. So some of these guys that we told, listen, we're not exercising your option, is mostly because we want to give them a fair head start so they can start looking at clubs. I think it's the right thing to do. It gives them an opportunity. There are a few that we're talking to in discussions to see if we can bring them back at a number that we think is, still keeps them happy and certainly engaged, but at the same token is cap friendly for us as well.
All right, we'll start with Zoom. Danielle, go ahead on Zoom.
Is there a player currently on your roster who you feel could fill Hector's role, not on the field, but kind of in the way of galvanizing the fan base and being kind of that big face of the franchise that you guys, when he came here in 2022, said that he could be?
We don't have anyone on our roster that's a Hector Herrera, if that's what you're asking. I mean, they're definitely, he's a very famous player in our region. I think that was one of the reasons we brought him here. We thought that would really, what's the best way to put this, would energize the Mexican fan base in the city. And to be fair, I don't know if it did as much as we thought it would. But we do have players in our roster that I think can be the face of this franchise. Ezekiel Ponce up top, Artur, who I think for all of us was probably our most valuable player this year. We have some Mikel De Santos is an interesting left back. Don't know how long he'll be here. He's our left center back. And Eric Shevchenko, who's just kind of a natural born leader in our group. So we have some guys, but they're certainly not Hector Herrera's, that's for sure. He's a bit of one of a kind and a pretty special guy.
All right, we'll go to Herman. Herman, go ahead.
Hey, Pat. Good afternoon. It's Herman Benitez with Foxtrot. I have
Hey,
two
Herman.
quick questions for you. One, I know the option was declined, but were there any talks about possibility of doing a TAM deal with Hector Herrera?
No, we didn't have that discussion with Hector and his agent. I know they have some ideas of what they would like to have happen, and I don't think we were going to come close to reaching an agreement, so it was never really tabled.
Perfect. And my second question is, in regards to another DP spot possibility being open, last offseason you shopped around Sebas Ferreira and eventually ended up being loaned to Brazil. What are the plans and hopes for Sebas Ferreira as he doesn't seem to be as involved in Ben Olsen's scheme?
No, that's true. That's true. He has one more year guaranteed, so in his contract. So currently, right now, we have 2 designated players. We would like that to remain there, so I'm not sure what that means for Sebastian. We're working with him and his agency and to see if there's a possibility. But if not, then on opening day, he'll be here, and hopefully we can get the most out of him next season.
Thank you, Pat.
Yep, no problem.
All right, Tom Boger, go ahead, Tom.
Hey, Pat, thanks.
Hey, Tom, no problem.
In a general sense, I know you touched on it a little bit before in terms of the 3DP or 4U22 initiative
Yeah.
model. Do you have like a strong feeling of which one you prefer, or is it more about keeping flexibility on a deal-by-deal basis as to which target?
Yeah, a little bit will depend on what's available now. We would prefer to go 2-4-2, so we prefer to go that model, which is 2 designated players. Sorry, I talk like I'm some expert at this thing. I'm learning the rules as much as you guys are. So that's 2 designated players, 4 youth player slots, U22 initiative players, and then $2 million in GAM that your ownership group can kick in. So we prefer that, Tom. I think for us that makes the most sense with our group. But having said that, right now we're already at the limit of 2, so a little bit depends on what we see and what we find, and then what we can solve in-house first and foremost.
A quick follow-up. If I
Yep,
may.
no problem.
Between the lines of those last couple answers, then that sounds like the plan firmly is to bring in another designated player this winter.
No, I wouldn't say that. We'll see. I said I don't think we're there yet. I think that one we'll have to to see how that one plays out. No, did I sound like that? I apologize if I sounded like that. Yeah.
It's probably okay. Thank you.
Okay.
All right, John Lupo, go ahead.
Just a couple of questions for me. First of all, you mentioned that you got a taste of playoffs last year, getting over to the conference final, and then sort of created expectations this year.
Yeah.
Do you feel like losing to LAFC, but playing them close, playing Seattle even closer, while you still want to, improve the team based on the model that you and Ben have created? Do you feel like you look at those two teams and say, while it is competitively, these are two teams we're going to have to challenge to get into MLS Cup final in the West? Do you feel like there may be things you can take out of that and say, well, we can improve here, or we can improve there to get on that level while still staying with the model that you and Ben are focused on doing for improving?
Yeah, we haven't talked a little bit, when you talk about the model, I'm assuming you mean like game model and the way we play. Yeah, we won't veer from that. I think our group is built that way, to play that way. Granted, Hector's a big piece of that, so that's a challenge. I touched on it a little bit earlier, saying, if you put a Coco Karaski in there, you do look a little bit different in terms of how you build out of the back. But we still strongly believe we have the type of players that are built for that system. So for us to change that would be a big recruiting moment for us, and a lot of changing in terms of the targets that we're looking at. So I think for us, we want to maintain the same way. Do we think we can compete with the LAFCs playing that way, the Seattles? Yes, we do. And we went kind of toe-to-toe with Seattle, certainly in the first round, and unfortunately, penalty kicks, we're not allowed to talk about penalty kicks here in Houston this year. But besides that, I thought we played very well. Especially on the road game, the home game, sorry. I thought that was a game that we probably should have put to bed a little bit sooner, rather than trying to take it to penalties, or not try to take it, but end up in penalties. But a road game even there, but at 0-0, we're down a man, I think we actually played pretty well. So I think we can compete with those teams. I do think we're missing a piece or two, though, if we really want to go above those teams and try to progress past them. So we have our work cut out for us. I give Ben a lot of credit for making sure that he got the most out of this group. But in the end, when I talk about disappointments, having two guys sent off in controllable plays in the playoffs, it doesn't matter who you're playing in the playoffs. It's going to be almost impossible for you to advance. It's not something you can do in the playoffs. You need to be a little more disciplined in that, and that was frustrating. I think Ben will tell you that. The players will tell you that. I think the way we went out was, I think you rather would have gone head-to-head for 90 minutes with 11 v 11 and lose that way. So that part of it was a bit disappointing for us.
The other question I had was, you mentioned before that you wrote to recruit players over this winter period. You want to obviously bring in players that have had experience in winning. And if things don't work out with Steve or Andrew, do you feel like maybe you place more emphasis on getting a goalkeeper with that type of experience, considering how important the goalkeeper position is, especially in a league that's as competitive as this one?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think we've had a few discussions this week about that, and how we kind of attack that at the end of games, because ultimately now with the league, you do a best of 3, you don't have extra time. League's Cup is the same format, U.S. Open Cup, same format now, until you get to the final. So, penalty kicks are going to be an important part of what we're trying to do here. And certainly in terms of who we recruit to play in goal next year is going to factor into that. Yeah, thanks.
All right, we'll go to Pablo. Pablo, go ahead.
Hey, Pat.
Hey, Pablo.
Athletic. Thanks for making the time to speak today.
No problem.
I just wanted to ask if Hector has spoken to you or addressed his teammates or Ben about what happened in the game, and if he had any thoughts. Did he express any kind of regret for what he did? Any insight you can offer on that?
Yeah, I think that one, we'd rather keep in house a little bit. So I'm sorry, I'm not going to give you the answer you want to hear. Hector, I know he went on social media and apologized to the fans and his teammates. It's a play that shouldn't happen in our sport. I think everyone in this room, I think, would agree with that, and it's disappointing, because in the end, it probably cost us an opportunity to force a Game 3. There's no guarantee we go to Seattle and get a result out of it, but it would have been nice to be preparing this week and not having this press conference and boarding a plane tomorrow and getting ready in the next day to go play Seattle. So that part of it was pretty disappointing. And I just don't think there's any part of the sport that spitting should be involved in here, in soccer, any sport, really.
Yeah, I certainly wouldn't ask you to put a percentage on it, but I mean, do you think prior to that incident, do you think there was a realistic chance of him coming back or not?
So you're asking for a percentage, or are you asking, no, just kidding. No, that was not a final straw. I think, for us, again, it goes more back to availability in a designated player position. Is he fit? Is he available to be on the field? We're a better team when he plays. It's a difficult decision, and he's a big part of our group and the way we play and the way the identity that we have in terms of how we play out of the back, how we try to dictate the game by being in possession. So that wasn't easy. I think that was the biggest thing, and we're still concerned about it. That's my job in the off season, and our job from a scouting department to make sure that we go get a replacement that we feel that can make sure we can maintain our model, the way we play, and that's not going to be an easy task.
Thanks, I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem.
A few more on Zoom. We'll go with Joey. Joey, go ahead.
Hey, Pat, Joey from Bayou City Soccer.
Hey, Joey.
Right now with your U22 players, you currently have all of them in winger positions. Is there any possibilities of any of them moving on to get more of a balance on the roster build?
Yeah, I can give you a little update there. I mean, for us, we do have three that can play wide. Nelson Quiones, Lawrence Anali, and Aliou Ibrahim. So the issue we're going to have right now is Lawrence Anali and Nelson Quiones are still recovering from ACL injuries. I can tell you, Lawrence is right on track. He's making a good recovery. His injury was pretty. I don't want to call it basic because it's an ACL injury, but and he had a little bit of meniscus, but it wasn't what I would call horrific injury. Nelson's, on the other hand, was a complete dislocation of his knee. While it was ACL, there was MCL, there was also cartilage damage. So his has been a little bit slower to come back than we'd hoped. But I would imagine both of them should be ready sometime early summer. But that means at that stage then, we have Ibrahim out wide on the left, and we're going to have to try to find some more players that can push him a little bit. And so we can try to see if we can get a little bit more out of him for the entire season. But if we're going to sell anyone, I would see, or move anyone out, I would see that probably happening in the summer for that position, those guys.
Gabe Siegel's contract was renewed for another season.
Did you say Gabe Siegel?
Yeah.
All right, here we go. Gabe Siegel. This could be a first time ever. Let's go.
All right. Was it more of a move to backup striker than first team? You guys saved up the potential to be a backup or starter in the future, or is this more of a move for Gabe Siegel to be a more contributor to the season?
Yeah, I mean, Gabe had a really good season for us in the sense that he contributed a few times to the first team in big moments. Got a big goal against Kansas City early on, and at that stage, we set the team up last year for Sebastian Ferreira. We set up the forward position that it was going to be his and let him have a run. Ben was on board with that, and I think we worked really hard for that. And to be fair to Sebastian, he worked really hard in the offseason and came in fit in preseason last year and got off to a pretty good start in preseason. And unfortunately, 25 minutes into Champions Cup game, he tore his hamstring pretty severely against St. Louis. And at that stage, we couldn't really go through an entire season without another forward. So we went out and got Ezekiel Ponce, and unfortunately for Sebastian Ferreira, it's put him on kind of the back burner. Right now, he would be the first 9 off the bench, and Gabe would be the next one. If for some reason Sebastian's no longer here, Gabe would probably have that opportunity to start the season. I don't know if we'd go and get someone else, but he'll have an opportunity to prove that he can be a number 2 striker. He's still got his work at the MLS level cut out for him, but one thing I know is I think he banged in 10 or 11 goals at the HD2. He's become a bit of a free kick specialist as well, by the way. So to the point that Hector said if he ever got a free kick late in the game, and he was going to give it to him, which I told Hector if he does that, I'm coming after him myself, but it's okay. Well, Gabe's pretty good at it.
All right, we'll go.
Thanks so much. Pat.
No problem.
We'll go to Sam. Sam, go ahead.
Hi, Pat.
Hey, Sam. How are you?
Yes, I'm alright. Sam here, Nelson Sports TV. Yeah, I want to ask you, because in course of you talking about Hector and his impact both on and off the field, and I think something you said that also Hector was brought in to help galvanize the message of campaign, and you don't know if he actually did that. So my question is off-field and community engagement. I mean, Houston Dynamo are an integral part of the Houston community at large. And how has the club worked to engage with other local fan base, apart from the Mexican fan base, to make, to galvanize all those other fan bases?
That's a great question, Sam. For me, I don't want to pass the buck completely. I do think, our players, certainly something we've been discussing with the front office is we want to try to get our players out in the community more often. In fact, you and Sam, we've actually, Sam, you and I have actually spoken about this as well. So I think it's important. I think we're not NFL, we're not Major League Baseball, we're not the NBA. We are MLS, and I still think we have a duty to try to sell the product and sell our players. So it's important for us to try to get out in the community, and it's something I think that we can continue to do a better job at and get these guys out there more often. I'm not sure who the gentleman was who had asked before. I think when you talk about faces of the franchise, I think part of it is one thing we talk about, and I remember when I played, is those individual connections where you sign an autograph for a kid, or a parent gets a photo with you and gets to take a photo with their kid. Those connections are really important in our sport, really important to build our fan base. And here in Houston, and I think it's something that we need to work on and do a better job of. And I think we're all trying, and that when I say all of us, I mean the technical group and also the front office group, to make sure that we create those connections with our city and our fan base. And I think that will help put butts in seats as well, and also make it a little bit more exciting for these people to say, hey, I remember when I sat there and Artur came over and he put his, ruffled my kid's hair and took a photo with him. And those are the moments I think that people grow attached to a team, and that's how you become a community team and what fans want to cheer for.
Another question about coaching and tactical right now, because last 2 seasons the club was one game away from the MLS Cup, and also this season they made playoff, and you were instrumentally bringing Onstad and making awesome signings. My question is, how do you characterize the tactical evolution of this team over the course of these seasons? This big tactical adjustment that you felt were key to the team getting all these, breaking this record, 8 wins on the road, more points, in a season and all that.
Sam, did you say awesome signings? That I had awesome signings? Is that what you said? Okay, I thought you said I made awesome signings. I was going to say that's great. I appreciate that. Yeah, from a tactical standpoint, it's not how we wanted to play. I think we've talked about this last year a little bit. Our idea was to be a team that was on the front foot, still had possession, certainly not the way we are now, but a team that generally had pretty good possession, but good positional play, and was a team that when they lost it, though, because of the numbers, we would win the ball back quickly and be more of a front foot pressing team. That didn't work out the way with our group, but the idea behind that was that we used to talk about and say, can we have this system where we're winning the ball back continually and never letting teams go out and get out of their own end, and over time that would really wear them down, especially with our weather. That was the idea behind it. And what I would say is over time it evolved with an Amin Bassi, Coco Carrasquilla, Hector, Artur, Sebastian Kowalczuk. We realized we had a really good core group of players, Brooklyn Reigns, that are comfortable on the ball. And we also have a fantastic surface that we play on, one of the best in the league. And we're able to build an overload midfield and the overload midfields and keep the ball and make teams chase. So I wouldn't say it was something we drew up in the board. In fact, we drew, not the opposite, but we drew in the board, our idea was a little bit different than how this ended up. But we've definitely evolved into a team that's has a pretty clear identity in the way we play. And teams certainly spend the week prepping for us and how do they destroy our midfield. And somehow we're still able to figure it out and be able to control games with the ball. Now, I would argue for us, and I think this is our job in the offseason, is how do we get a team that can punish teams now that we have possession? How do we create opportunities? How do we score goals? And that's something I think we have to work on. Defensively, we've been, one of the better teams over the last couple of years defensively. We've been keep our team in games, but we need to start taking a bit of pressure off our defense. And I think this year when we've tied some games at home and lost some games, it's been not controlling the game. It's just not being able to finish plays off and score goals. So that's where we probably need to improve. And once we can do that, then I think we can be an elite team in this league.
Yeah, appreciate that, man.
No problem.
All right, two more. We'll start with, we'll go with Jason, and then we'll finish up with Alex. Go ahead, Jason.
Hi, Pat.
Hey, Jason.
Ponce, 5 goals in 10 games. From the outside, it appears as advertised. How would you assess how he performed, and what's the next step for him?
Yeah, I think the next step for him is to, keep scoring goals, and I think a full preseason, the team understanding his strengths and weaknesses will help. One piece that we went out and looked for, and it's not easy to find, is we wanted to make sure we found a forward that was willing to put in a lot of work, press well, and what we found since he's come here is our defensive has actually gotten better, which is no surprise because we have a forward that hunts the ball as well as anybody and makes it difficult for other teams to gain a rhythm. So that part has been really exciting. But I think the biggest one is just him evolving into the way we're playing, understanding how we want to score goals, and that takes time. And I think you saw it. He was actually probably one of his best games for us all season was the last game against Seattle. I thought he played excellent for us and against the best defense in the league. Unfortunately, couldn't put it. He had a couple opportunities. I'm sure he'd like back to put away, but I thought he was very effective in that game, and that's probably a guy that's his performances you hope you can get 34 out of next year.
All right, Alex, go ahead, Alex.
Great. First of all, Pat, good afternoon. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you good, Alex. How are you doing?
I'm fine, sir. Thanks for your time. Thanks for being so candid with us, like you always have been, Pat, and we appreciate that. The Hector Herrera era is over, and you said that not much of the needle was moved in filling up Shell Energy with the Mexican crowd. Maria Sanchez, something similar, in my opinion. Well, what do you think is going into that? And I'm sure that was part of the conversation about keeping him here or not.
Like I said, I think there's a lot of factors that go into that decision. I think that's unfair to put that on a player to say that. So I wouldn't say that's a factor, but certainly was something we were hoping for when we brought him in here. And again, I kind of go back to the answer I had a little while ago. I think it's not just a front office responsibility, it's a club responsibility to connect with fans and try to bring fans in. I think that's something we need to continue to work on and get better at. Alex, you and I have discussed this too, as well as how do we get out there where we're making connections with local clubs as well. But for us, there's nothing like the last 2 games we had there. And even that is still, 80% full. It'd be nice if it's 100% full, but I think the last 2 games and scoring late goals and you can feel the electricity in that stadium, that's something that we're striving for as a club to try to get there so that each and every game that we have at Shell Energy Stadium creates that sort of environment and is a great place for players to play.
And where are you in your process? If I recall correctly, a year ago you said, listen, if I don't get into the playoffs soon, it's my head and on the plate, if you will. Maybe I'm paraphrasing. I don't know if you quite used that word.
That's pretty close.
But you did take on the responsibility. You've changed now the club 2 years in a row in the playoffs. Hector Herrera is going to change potentially where you might head short term, meaning next year. Are you happy with the progress? Are you as a GM comfortable where you're headed?
I'm one of those guys that I have a tough time kind of sitting back and realizing how far we've come. I'm proud of where we're at, but I also am a type of guy that wants more. So I really want this city and this club to get an opportunity to raise another MLS Cup. And listen, there's 28 other CSOs that I would say the same thing right now as well. But I'm also probably the only CSO that's won a trophy for the team that he's a part of. So I understand how much it means to this community for teams that win. I've watched the Astros. I know what that means when they win, and believe it or not, I can actually remember back when the Rockets were winning too. In those days, that was kind of my heyday. So in the NBA, watching the NBA, so I want to be a part of that. I want to be a part of this. I love being in this city. I love being a part of this community. So I probably care a little more than most. And so when you say I'm always wanting more, so when we don't end up winning a trophy in a year, as Ben said, and have a great season, it's disappointing for me. I want more, but I'm happy in where we're moving. I think we're moving in the right direction, but I still think we've got a long way to go to reach the goals that we all expect to get to eventually.